Becoming a successful professional speaker is a journey. How do you find that first stage, the next stage, and then the bigger and better stages? I'm Lee Hayes, your host. My co-hosts and I are here to guide you to a more successful speaking career. You're listening to Path to the Main Stage podcast. Welcome to today's podcast. I want you as an emerging speaker to be wildly successful and get on lots of stages. But as I've mentioned, and what we're going to talk about today is that there is more to the speaking business than the art form, than having a great topic or a great story. You have to be great to work with, to get recommended, to get asked back. So today's co-host is going to help with that because he's phenomenal. And why is it important? Well, I have hired lots of speakers. So over my left shoulder, there are pictures of the people I work with regularly, but I've hired hundreds of speakers for various clients who have needed speakers for different events. And one thing that is very important to me is what it's like to work with them before the event ever happens. Not just their video clip, not just their story, but the interaction with speakers. In fact, the first tenet of my business is only work with delightful people. And that's because when you run an event or own an event, or like me, you're hiring speakers for somebody else's event, it's scary. There is a lot of money on the line. Your reputation is on the line. And it's not going to be just how they stand on that stage. It's going to be, did they bring their A game? Were they ready? Were they great to communicate with? Did they respond quickly? Did they have the materials you needed? And did they get you what you needed? So today's co-host is a former Olympian in the bobsled. He is former NFL. That's a story in itself. He is an excellent speaker. He does corporate. He does entrepreneurial. He has a great stage presence. But what's most important, and why I have him co-hosting today, is because of the way he communicates with clients. He is faster than a bobsled. He's very responsive. He brings the materials they need. He can't anticipate what they're going to need for their event. He does great videos for them. He has material. He sees everything at the edge of a finger. You're ready to get it. And so I asked him to come here today to share the way he does these things, what he uses, what he has set up, how he communicates, because he's going to make you a more popular speaker by being a better communicator. So here he is, the one and only U.S. Olympian bobsledder and wonderful NFL and great speaker and just a wonderful person to work with, Johnny Quinn. Hey, Johnny, how are you today?
Lee, it's so good to see you.
It is great to have you here. And because the Winter Olympics are right around the corner, I do want to touch on that because you're kind of cool. So, bobsledder, right? You were an Olympic bobsledder.
That's right. I just watched the movie Cool Runnings over and over and over, and then you become a bobsledder. You're right. We're under a year away from the next Olympic Games.
Yeah, so it's kind of like being a speaker, right?
That's
If you go, I'm just not afraid to talk in front of people.
Yep.
You just do it.
Yeah.
Watch Cool Runnings, so you can just jump in the sled.
That's right. Yeah, we'll start watching a lot of TED Talks, and then you'll be a fantastic speaker overnight, right?
Yeah. I love it. Okay, but not only were you an Olympic bobsledder, which I think was a lot harder than watching a movie, but I know you also had quite an experience with the NFL,
Right.
Not just playing, but being cut.
That's right.
But that also was a part of your journey, right? So tell me a little bit about your sports journey and then how that got you on stage.
Yeah. Growing up, played all the sports, but it wasn't until I found football that I thought, hey, I want to go pro in this. And so followed that journey collegiately, and then I turned pro at 22 years old. Lee, it was a dream come true, right? Enter the NFL, see my name in an NFL locker room. You know, we've made it. And unfortunately, my pro football career did not go the way that I anticipated. And so by age 26, I've been cut 3 times. I lost $2.6 million and blew out my knee. And Lee, life was over, right? My first dream to be this
Dream.
pro football player came to an end. Door, slammed in my face. And it was at that point that I realized, and this word was abused during COVID, but I need to bring it back. It was important that I pivoted. It was time to pivot,
Okay.
right? And my agent represented a bobsledder. My mom, one of her coworkers was a bobsledder back in the day. And because you can't go to college to be a bobsledder, they
They don't have a major in
no, they don't. Yeah, not yet. Maybe we'll get a new university to offer that. The They look for former football guys, and so I kind of had the build that they were looking for. And I sent some of my film to the Olympic Training Center to a driver up there. He said, "Johnny, come out here in a couple months, push a bobsled around, see if you like it." I said, "Buddy, look, I'll come out, but if my agent finds a football team, I'm out of here." True story. 2 days before the Olympic trials, this driver reached out to me. One of his guys showed up overweight. He goes, "Johnny, I've got an open spot on my sled. Do you want to come give it a push?" I said, "Okay." I flew into the Olympic Training Center the night before team trials. My first time ever on ice was at the U.S. 4-man team trials, and Lee, we took third place.
I didn't know this part of your story.
And that started this 4-year journey of making the Olympic team. And so so then that was my intro to bobsled. At that point, I saw an opportunity, 4 years to make the Olympic team. And so in 2014, I had the opportunity to represent our country on the world's greatest stage athletically. It was unbelievable. And so, yeah, that was my journey through sports. And through that, this is how it led to speaking, Lee, believe it or not.
Yeah.
So when I was in the NFL, I kept getting cut. And getting cut is not good because those are the guys that, you lose your contract. Well,
Yeah.
I didn't know if my agent was going to have to send me to go run a 40-yard dash for the Kansas City Chiefs or the Indianapolis Colts. I just didn't know. So I had to find a way to generate income by not working traditional hours. And as a speaker, not traditional hours. They hire you for an hour and a half, and or longer, if you do some trainings. And so that was my first intro. So I'd say at 22, that was my first intro. But here's kind of a fun fact about the NFL that not a lot of people know. Part of your contract, now they could have changed it since I was there, but part of your contract is you had to do a minimum of 6 public appearances. And so I always gravitated towards communication. I've seen sports people kind of really mess up interviews, and I didn't want to do that. And so if I had a chance to work on my craft or how to public speak, I don't know, I always enjoyed that. And so that was kind of like a crash course to speaking. And then I just fell in love with it. And then I started to understand, hey, there's a business here. I need to understand the business, just like I needed to understand bobsled when I made that pivot. What are the ins and outs? How do we cross T's, dot I's? It's the same thing. And so that's how I kind of got my intro to speaking, is I had to find a way to generate income in between my cuts.
That is fascinating because a lot of times, let me tell you, speakers who's listening, you don't jump out of the gate making money as a speaker.
Sure.
So to start looking at it as an income, usually it started as, how can I grow my business? How can I get more, how can I get seen more? Build a reputation. You just went into it for the cash. I'm impressed.
Yeah, and what was interesting is with that, let me tell you what's a hard sell, Lee, is selling an NFL guy who just gets cut, right? Because at this point, I haven't made an Olympic team, right? At this point, it's the guys, at least in the NFL, that make the serious coin, speaking, they're Super Bowl champions. They played 14 years. They kicked the world's longest field goal. I'm a guy who just got cut. So here's a cool entry point. Think about this. You can find speaking engagements off of your setbacks, off of your losses, off of your frustration. So think about this, Lee, because I've heard this before. Well, I haven't done anything, or I haven't accomplished anything great, or I didn't bear crawl across the state of Wyoming. I don't have a compelling story. Hey, wait a second. Those stories are cool, and there's a place for that. But if you have a passion for communication, if you have a passion to become a speaker, turn this into a business, there's no doubt you've lived a life story that somebody needs to hear.
You absolutely are correct. And you're right. The big name speakers, the big dollar speakers, I think you can start easily
No doubt.
if you have the big thing, right? Um, and Joe Theismann I've worked with, and it's interesting. What made him famous was not the Super Bowl win, it was the failure, right? It was the broken leg. It was getting cut. And interesting, just when you were telling your story a little bit about being cut and how the doors are getting slammed in your face. So interesting. Joe Theismann, after he returned from his broken femur, or I think it was a fib, whatever, the bad leg, he said people didn't even talk to him. He goes, I walked in to get stuff out of my locker, and it was like nobody knew me. He goes, I didn't matter anymore. I couldn't play. I was out. So it doesn't even matter if you won the Super Bowl.
Right.
You're out.
Right.
You're done.
Yep.
Right. So interesting. All right. So you got there by you need an income. You got there. But I love how you studied the business
Right.
of speaking. I think that's a big difference. And that's really what I want to get into today. So when you get out there, how do you approach potential customers? Because you do a lot of outreach. You do a lot of marketing.
I do.
How are those touches? How do you communicate with people and say, you should put me on your stage?
It's a great question and a great starting point, Lee, we want everyone to understand. And this goes back to the sports days, is that it begins with my mindset. Okay. And so, Lee, what I do and what I would encourage our emerging speakers to do is that we have to get good and we have to get comfortable with interrupting people's days. Okay? We need to become professional interrupters, and we have to understand that's okay. I'm going to interrupt somebody, not in a rude way, but they're going to learn about Johnny Quinn today because they have no idea who he is. Yes, I've played, professional football. Yes, I went to the Olympics, but I don't have name recognition like a Michael Phelps. And so one of the things I did early on, and I continue to do this today, is I've become a professional interrupter. I'm not sitting back waiting for my phone to ring. I'm not waiting for that email introduction. I'm going to go out. And so this is where I see a lot of hang up because it feels uncomfortable. It's an unknown. I want to share as a professional speaker for the last 11 years, this is the entry point. Particularly if you don't come from a background with some, crazy unique story and you want to break into the business side, is it starts with my mindset that I'm going to be an interrupter today, and that's okay. So I wanted to share, at least get that foundationally. From there, Lee, what I do is I've started to utilize, and I'm doing this for years now, is taking advantage of digital tools. And so as you and I are communicating on this podcast video, I am pumping out a lot of videos to people.
Yeah.
And I pick this up, and who I study, and this is kind of interesting because it's not other speakers who I got this from. I got this from lenders and real estate agents. And I got this because their sales cycle is very similar to a speaker's sales cycle. Because if you miss somebody on a refi or you miss somebody on that new home, it's kind of depending on what interest rates are going to do, when they're going to move again, or what they're going to refi. Well, Lee, if I miss an event because a client goes with another speaker, what happens if next year they change that theme to space exploration and artificial intelligence? They're not bringing in a leadership guy like me. And so now that moves that cycle out. And so what I've noticed with video content and sending out these prospecting video emails is it's a beautiful entry point on outreach to people who have no idea who I am yet. And so those are two things that I start with, is this mindset that I'm going to be a professional interrupter today, not rude. And then I'm going to use video content as my introduction.
And because I've seen a lot of your emails, I find the format interesting. You're not saying, hire me, hire me, hire me.
Right.
You tell stories. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, and I got this concept from a guy, very, very famous guy. I'm sure you've heard of him, and our listeners are going to hear about Gary V. He wrote a book years ago called Jab, 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 Right Hook. And as I read that book, and it's really, and I do this on my outreach and also do this on my social media accounts. is if all I'm doing is saying, through a megaphone, "Hey, I'm a speaker, hire me. I have great content. Your audience is going to love me." People are going to drown that out in a
Tune out.
heartbeat. And so I'll share a story about um, blowing my knee out, or I'll share a story. I'm very into pickleball right now. My wife and I play a lot of pickleball together. And so what I'm doing is, and this is foundational, is what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to build a relationship, because people do business with people that they like, know, and trust. And so I'm trying to get on that like and know. And so you'll see these little jabs, jabs, jabs. And then I come in with a right hook, something stronger, a call to action. I'll say, "Hey, I see you've got a conference in November, and it's based in Dallas. Well, I'm in McKinney. I'm 30 minutes away. I'd love to, come in and be your closing keynote or something, get a little more specific." And so I am very intentional on storytelling to build relationships up front.
All right. Now, I want to know something very specific. So you're talking about the jab, 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 right hook.
Yeah.
Are the jabs going to your whole customer base and then your right hook goes to a specific person? Or are they all just blanket emails?
No, no, they're intentional. So I have them in three verticals. I have my CRM, my contacts, divided into three verticals. I have hot leads, I have warm leads, and I have cold leads. And so depending on where somebody falls will determine what type of outreach they get from me. Because, Lee, somebody who's hot on the booking means they have an event, they have money, and the theme is somewhere in my wheelhouse. So they've checked a few boxes. Somebody who's warm is that they book speakers, they've got some money, but it's just not the right time for them, or maybe we missed and they're not even looking at it. And then cold is somebody that either somebody I want to know, I want to get to know, or maybe they've heard me speak before, but they don't really book speakers, but they might know somebody. And so it just depends on where I have somebody tagged and curated. But those are the three verticals that I play in, and I move people. You're either hot, you're either warm, or either cold, and they're all important, but they are categorized in those three different verticals.
And for anyone who does not have a CRM, right, this is an app or a spreadsheet or a program that's going to allow you to manage your customers or your contacts. They don't have to be customers yet. But I just wanted to bring that up, that if you don't have one as an emerging speaker, you need to have a system.
Read. Lee, I mean, I want to.
You don't know how many speakers I've talked to who don't have that.
I want to underscore bold 72 font what you just said there. If we're going to be a speaker who looks at this as a business, a CRM of some sort is really a non-negotiable. It just is.
Yeah, but I know many who don't have it. In fact, I'm guilty of, I've always had one, not utilizing it effectively.
Sure.
Like you're talking about having categories.
Yeah.
It took me a while to get going with that. Oh my goodness, it makes a difference, folks. It really makes a difference.
It sure does. Yeah. And so what I'll do, so think about this, and we can walk through these verticals, because I think this would be so good for our emerging speakers. Because let's think about it as an emerging speaker, most of our leads are going to be cold. No one's really heard you speak yet. Or maybe we got family and friends. We've got a couple, maybe some rotaries or some chambers you've been to. Great, not a problem. And so one thing that I do with my cold, because see, here's the thing. I don't have time to call all my cold, but I still need them to know about Johnny Quinn. And for my emerging speakers, we still need them to know about you. And so twice a month, I send out a newsletter. It's called Pushing Forward, right? It's in alignment with my brand. And so think about this. If I'm an emerging speaker, do I have something that's going to be in alignment with my brand that I can slowly and consistently outreach to people? And so twice a month, it goes out on the 1st and the 15th. I share one tip at home and one tip at work. That's it. One tip at home, one tip at work, and I give a practical application on what you can do to push forward in life. Push forward in life at home, push forward in life at work, right? So what are we doing here? It's in alignment with my brand. I've got my cold category, which truthfully, Lee, and for our emerging speakers, it's going to be the biggest contact database you have anyway. And yep. I'm being intentional. They're getting nurtured, and and that's it. And that's what you do with our colds is that we love on them twice a month. They're hearing from Johnny Quinn.
But you have to work on those colds because you never know where the lead is coming from. I've gotten those. Oh, Lee, I talked to you 5 years ago, and now my friend is running this event, and you have a speaker. So it surprises me sometimes when I talk to speakers who say they get a lead on their page, their speaking page, and dismiss it. They said, well, I asked if they had an X budget, and they checked no, they're gone. I recommend to not dismiss leads without talking to them. I talk to everybody.
Agreed.
Johnny.
Okay, same.
I am on the phone all week long.
Same.
And you don't get I go into some of these calls knowing that they can't hire my speaker, but you'd be so surprised what comes out of it. How many times they'll say, oh, well, for this event, you're right, I have no budget. But every other year we throw a big event. This is our every other year. Like next year, we're going to throw this big event and we have a budget. Well, I would have never known that if I went by, they checked the box and said no budget.
Bingo. Yep, Lee, that's so spot on. And I operate the same way, and I think that's why you and I get along so well, is because we see that as it's almost as business development. It's almost as what we understand. It might not make sense for this event, but I don't know who you know. I don't know. Are you gonna? Will you change positions with another company in the next 12 months that has an unbelievable budget? I mean, there's just so many. Hey, I'm so glad we got to connect. How can we work together on future events? Right? That's the process. Lee, let me share this. Let me tell you one of the things I did well early on in my career when I started speaking. And Lee, this goes against what a lot of people recommend. Okay.
I love counterintuitive.
Okay, so this is counterintuitive because I got to tell you, when I was breaking in, I'm observing, I'm looking at people who are getting speaking engagements. What are they doing? And let me tell you some of the advice I got. So, and I went in one direction and I said no to the other. To speak more, you need to speak more. It's good advice. Okay, good advice. That's what I do. I continue to do that. Here's another piece of advice I got, Lee. Is you need to niche down and you need to find your target market. And at face value, Lee, it makes sense. Mm-hmm. If you confuse, you lose. Who's my audience? Who am I speaking to? Listen, Lee, when you're getting started, anybody that will bring you in, that will give you a platform to share a message, you take it. You go after it. You customize your keynote to their needs. I was working with a guy who spent 30 years in the restaurant business. And some of the advice that he got is I need to niche down. And I need to speak to restaurant owners, franchises of restaurants. I mean, those are my people. Lee, this guy could go speak at a healthcare conference. And share how did he deal with burnout in the restaurant area. You think healthcare is not dealing with burnout right now? This guy could go to the financial service industry and talk about building great teams. All these financial service industries are trying to figure out how do we build unstoppable teams. And so I found that advice early on, Lee, to not be accurate. And so that is when I saw those two, you got to speak more. You got to niche down and find your target audience. What I realized is those were butting heads against each other. Because in order for me to speak more, I was going to do events that you would never think that you would hire a U.S. Olympian for. Mm-hmm. And so, and that has helped explode my business. Does that make sense?
Well, it absolutely does. Yeah. What's interesting is, so when I work with emerging speakers, I do tell them to find their target market, but not to avoid other things, sure. Right? So the idea is to have a clear message as to what you represent.
Right.
Now, if some guy over here likes that message, you go speak there.
Right.
That's fine.
Right.
That's fine. So when I talk about target marketing, it's about having your clarity, right? This is what I do best. This is my lane. Now, like I said, if that lane suits a space shot, you go, okay.
Right.
That's fine.
Exactly.
That's fine. I try not to be all things to all people, though. Like, I don't think you can start out saying, oh, sure, I can talk about leadership. Sure, I can talk about
Great.
hiring. Sure, I can talk about time management. It's like, no, no, no. What are you best at? And then allow that. You like you said, stages beget stages. That's what I call it. So
And Lee,
more speaking.
you just opened up a good, I think, a good segue there on you can't be all things to everyone, and you're right, because here's another thing. Here's where I see emerging speakers miss, and I'm gonna be honest with you. This is where I missed early on. Is I thought, well, okay, if that's the case, if I'm gonna go to this stage, I'm gonna get on stage, I'm gonna meet people, then I need 10 keynotes. You know, I need 10 different. Right. I need 10 different messages. Not true.
No.
You need a signature talk. And then you make adjustments on where you're going. And then as you begin to expand your database and you've been in this speaker circuit, you've seen cycles and you start to understand things, then maybe it's time to open up. But that's the mistake is you're like, well, I got to get 10 keynotes out of the gate. No.
Yeah.
Let's get a signature talk and then you make adjustments.
All right. I'm going to jump to another topic here. Speed. I know this is your topic, speed. Interesting thing. So again, two different trains of thought. When I get a request, I try to answer very quickly. For me, very quickly means when I see it, which is sometimes within hours. I've been told early on by a couple speakers that they go, oh, no, Lee, if you answer too quickly, you look desperate. You look more important if you don't answer quickly. Now, you are the fastest responder I've ever worked with, faster than a bobsled, right? I think that is...
Yeah, that's the tackle.
What kind of response do you get from clients? When you respond really quickly, do they go, ooh, a little too quick? Or do they go, oh my gosh, thank you for getting back to me? Like, what are you finding?
Lee, it is pleasant surprise every freaking time. Every time. Oh my gosh, I can't believe you called me so quick. Well, I got to talk to you directly. This is... Lee, when you're passionate about what you do, and a lead comes in, and I think because I've been in the industry now for over a decade, speaking's hard. It's hard to get these leads. And so to think that I'm going to sit back and wait goes against my DNA just in general. And the other thing it does, though, Lee, is it shows the event planner or whoever reached out that you're ready, that you're able, that it's almost a first impression on, he's going to respond. When I send it, let's say we move forward with Johnny Quinn and I send him an email on when AV check is going to be, I've got this understanding that Johnny's going to respond in a timely manner. And so I look at it as it's a way to help set the tone early on. I've only received positive feedback from this. As a matter of fact, the faster I call back, the better my conversations have been. I closed an event this January, and you were on my email that I sent it to because I sent it out as just kind of a marketing deal. Lee, in 14 minutes. 14 minutes. Wow. Because when you're an emerging speaker and you're getting started, the advantage that you have is speed. And I'll even say that now, 11 years in, and I've got a massive database. And when I look at my calendar, I have to move things around. Speed is one of the things I can't give up, right? And so I see that as a competitive advantage.
I believe it is. I believe it is. And I think you do that really well. And that's definitely wanted to share that. Because the compliment I often get is, wow, you responded so quickly. And my response is, I figure you sent me the email right now because you're thinking about your event right now.
Bingo, Lee. Bingo.
Right?
Bingo.
Okay, so you've responded quickly. People know they're going to get response from you. Tell me a little bit about your process. You've gotten the lead, and they said either let's jump just before they say yes. They say we're really considering you, right? Because you get that, right? You get that a lot. You're absolutely considering you. We have to go back to our committee.
Yeah.
Committee. Yeah. What do you do next? What is your next step? You click, the phone gets hung up. What are you doing now?
So you're right. I need to find out, are they the decision maker or are they taking it back to the committee? And a lot of times they're taking it back to the committee. So then my next question is, great, that's fantastic. Does the committee have a timeline on when they're going to make their decision? Because what I need to find out, Lee, is I need to find their buying window, their booking window. Because what that allows me to do is it allows me to not be a nuisance. Because look, right now we're recording this in May, If they tell me they're buying windows in October, I know how to set up my follow-up schedule. If they tell me, hey, thanks for calling me so quickly. We're considering you. We got our committee. We plan on making our decision in the next 2 weeks. I know we're moving fast here. And so the first thing I find out is, when is the committee going to make their decision? Because that secures my next move. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And what is that next move?
So here's the next move. So then I'll ask, and if I didn't already gather it on the intake, the conversation before they tell me, hey, we got to take this to committee, is I'm asking them, hey, what is our theme for this event? So let's role play here, Lee. Let's say that you tell me that, Johnny, we're considering you for our January SKO, which stands for Sales Kickoff Meeting. There's going to be 300 attendees. Our theme is need for speed in the new year, okay? So that's what I got. And we, in our committee, what we like to do is we're going to make our decision in the next 2 weeks, because we want to lock in our speaker for January. And so you give me that information. So I'll say something like this: great, let me do this. Let me get you an email with a proposed keynote title, session description, and learning objectives. That way your committee has a better understanding of what I'm going to bring to the table. Because here's the thing, Lee. No one is going to sell me, or even our emerging speakers, no one's going to sell you better than yourself. Here's the problem. I can't get to the committee. I wish I could. They won't give me a time and day. And to our emerging speakers, that you're not talking to the committee, because this person's in charge of rounding up the speakers, and they're going to present it. And so this email, what I'm doing is I'm providing them almost a snapshot on, if they choose to book Johnny Quinn on need for speed, this committee is seeing my proposed title, a session description, and learning objectives. What am I doing here, Lee? I'm giving them exactly what they want for the
what they want
process.
and what they need,
What
right?
they
So
need.
we have a similar process in that same thing. When people say, I'm taking it back to the committee, I immediately follow up with an email, again, depending on their buying window. But usually I do send one right after we speak, and then I can follow later, that will say, because it's with me, they're not looking for me to speak, right? They're looking for one of my speakers. So I'll say, on the call, we talked about these 3 people. Here is their video, their bio, what they're bringing to the table, right? But they get that immediately, because I said, now, sometimes I'll even put it in a PowerPoint presentation for them. I'll go, here's all you need. Here's all you need. You can go to your committee now and just hit play.
Yep. Beautiful.
And I've taken care of that for you.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
So I love this follow-up. It's so important.
Yep. And it's at that point I get, and then typically when you send over a quality response that's giving the committee what they need, it really makes that next follow-up call a lot easier. Because think about this: in 2 weeks, if I don't hear back from them, and I might ping them before, it depends on how that call goes. The initial call it's an easy follow-up call. Hey, Lee, we spoke 2 weeks ago. I'm sure, want to check and see if the committee met. Did they like my learning objectives about cultivating the audience? I thought that might be a good fit for January, right? So I'll reference something.
Which is fantastic. And I think I want to jump in here about AI.
Yes.
So I know speakers who say to me, all right, Lee, so I need like a drip, I need a funnel that these things happen in a certain order and they go out and I don't even have to worry about it. What I have found, again, I'd love your feedback on this, is that there's a little bit of intuition to working with someone who's got a committee or whatever. I can't set up regular interval drip reminders to them. I mean, through the year I'll do that, or I send out the emails. But once somebody's on the line, right, you've got the fish, I feel like you've got to feel that line and really respond on an individual basis.
Lee, you do. And so think about my verticals, that this person who you're talking about, whether they were in my cold or my warm, is now over in my hot, right? And so that vertical, the hot vertical, I'm not using those are intentionalities. Outreaches. Those are individual outreaches. Those are the ones that's actually where I need to be spending most of my time. See, I think where I see speakers get this wrong, particularly early on, is we don't use these time maximizer tools, which is what AI is selling itself as, for our hot leads. We use that to work with the cold and things like that. And we, if we want to dig into that, we can. These hot ones, Lee, that's individual attention. That's blocking out your schedule. That's you working on your business.
Absolutely. So agree. All right. So let's say they bite, they want you, they contract. Now, I know here's another process where I think some speakers let it fall away. They go, oh, I got the contract. I'll see you that day, right? I'll show up. What do you do between I've got the contract and showing up? What kind of communication do you have in there?
Lee, this starts with another mindset. So we talked on the initial, I'm going to be a professional interrupter. Now we're talking, how does my mindset change now that they've booked Johnny Quinn? I'm going to be their speaker, right? I'm their guy. Let me tell you the mindset, Lee. This is what I go through. This is my thought process, is that once I get off this stage for the client, I am going to be unemployed again. And so I need to make sure that I do such a good job for this client that when I walk off that stage and I'm unemployed, I can go back to that client and say, hey, I did such a good job. Do you have a fellow colleague or anybody else that brings in speakers on where you think I might be a good fit? Because, Lee, what you do from the minute you sign that contract till you get off stage, see if I can word this right, sets the hook for the referral. Okay? Because if you show that you are timely, that you are easy to work with, you aren't a prima donna, you aren't, well, we got under contract, I'm not going to hear from Johnny Quinn until, he's going to fly in the night before, it makes the referral process easier. Okay? And so I'll walk you through what I do, but I need people to understand that mindset. That's the mindset.
Your mindset is you're always thinking for the next step. You're always thinking forward.
Always thinking forward. So we've gone to contract. The next thing I'm thinking is promotional material. Because and I was also using this for part of the sell. Hey, you booked Johnny Quinn to speak. I'm gonna send over a promotional graphic. I'm gonna do a promotional video for you, and I'll show them some examples, right? And so at that point, what I'm doing is I'm now getting the client. You've got my keynote title, you've got my session description, you have my learning objectives. Now I'm gonna shoot a 60-second clip from my virtual studio, inviting attendees to bring a colleague. Or, if it's an eternal event, we're not bringing guests because this is our sales team, then I'm sharing 2 tools that they're going to learn in January at the SKO to maximize their sales for the upcoming year. And so at that point, I'm going to give the client promotional material. And I can't tell you how, from the client standpoint, Lee, they're kind of like, wow, this guy does everything for me. He gets me things ahead of when I need it. I don't have to chase him down in his inbox. I'm constantly showing them that they've made the right selection. And Lee, I haven't even got on stage yet. We haven't even, right? I mean, I haven't even got on stage yet, but I'm trying to show the client that they've made the right selection.
And so I love the promotional material. And I think clients really like that. Just so your emerging speakers know, promotional videos are definitely a hot ticket item all the time. It's such a helpful thing. And some speakers, for whatever reason, higher level speakers either don't do it or charge for it, which I don't understand.
Interesting.
It's such a beautiful plus. Right? That just makes the client so happy. All right. So now we're all the way up. You've done the promotional. It is the day you are there. You mentioned flying in the night before. Do you?
Yeah, that's coming now.
And most clients are requiring now. The way flights are nowadays, there are some speakers who zing in that morning. There are quite a few clients I'm working with now that just no longer accept that.
Yeah.
You have to the night before, which I agree because flights are horrendous.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming you get there the night before. What is your process again for the client? What are you doing?
Right when I land, so I have an SOP, standard operation procedure. Right when I land, I immediately send an email to the client or a text, depending on what they wanted, to let them know that my flight has arrived. Can't wait to see them in the morning, and I double check what time AV is. And so to my emerging speakers, let me tell you how I like to do AV. I do not like doing AV the night before. And let me tell you why. Sometimes there's some mysterious little mice that happens to go in and just eat that cable, and then the AV check that I did the night before doesn't work. I like AV check day of. I don't care if I got to get there and earlier. I want to plug my computer in and run it the day of. So That's how I do it. That's my preference. If the client really wants the night before, I'll do it for them. But when they typically ask me, hey, when do you want to do AV? And I tell first thing in the morning.
First thing in the morning. And just so speakers know, that might mean 7 a.m.,
That's right.
7:30 a.m.
That's right. And I'll tell you why I like that anyway. So right when I land, I'm letting the event planner know. What is that doing? It's giving them peace of mind that their speaker is in the same city. Okay. And I just recheck what time we're going to do AV.
Yep.
When I get to the hotel, what I like to do, if I can, because typically what happens when I fly in the night before, they've either had a couple sessions, or if I'm the opening keynote, they're doing a dinner that night. I don't go to the dinner late unless they've requested. Mm-hmm. What I want to do when I get there is I want to go spot where I'm going to go be speaking. Mm-hmm. Because I see the registration booth, and then if I can get in the door, which I'd say it's about 50-50. Sometimes they have it locked. Sometimes it's just, whatever. If I can get in the door, then I just walk the room. I want to see where the lighting is. I already have an idea where the AV table is. I just walk the room. This is very similar to sport, Lee. This is exactly what we did as a football team. We fly in the day before. We go to the stadium. You see the locker room. You walk out on the field. You look at the stands. You see, is there any weird lighting in the end zone? Lee, I'm doing the same thing as an athlete, just as a speaker.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's the same thing, and that's what I do. And then I'm up in my room, and then let's walk through AV check. Here's why I like AV check early, even if that means 7 a.m. and the conference doesn't start till 8:30. One, the event planner is typically they've been stressed, okay, and they're there early. It gives me a little bit of one-on-one time early on. Okay, letting them know, just a reinforcement. Hey, I am so excited for today. I can't wait to set the tone as the opening keynote. Thank you again for bringing me in. We're going to have a fantastic day. So a little bit of kind of like a peace conversation early on. The other thing it lets me do, Lee, is it lets me interact with the early attendees. Okay. Because the people who get there, they're first in line for breakfast. They're typically the ones who want to talk, okay? It just is, Breakfast is from 7:30 to 8:30. You get the people who show up at 7:30, they're ready to chat. And so they're giving me a little insider information on, did they do a group bowling event the night before? Who hit 3 strikes in a row? They're giving me little tidbits that I can, if it makes sense, I don't do this all the time, but if it makes sense throughout my keynote, I can drop something. And what is that just showing? It's showing that I'm dialed in for the audience. Because, Lee, here's the goal. We've walked beautifully through this. When I get off stage, what I'm really looking for is for that event planner's phone, her text messages or his text messages, to start blowing up. And do you know what I want the text messages to be? Lee, my goodness, that was the perfect keynote speaker. Lee, thanks for bringing out that bobsled guy. I felt like he's reading my mail. Lee, you knocked it out of the park. Lee, that's what I'm going for. That's
the goal that many speakers don't always see, right? The goal is not it's nice when people come up to you and tell you were great. What you want is for them to tell the event planner that you were great. Because that's where your bread and butter is, right?
That's right. Lee, as a speaker, we see people for 1 hour out of the year. My event planner sees them every day, every other day. We're making the event planner the hero. And so for our emerging speakers, if we can frame that, kind of, our macro, if I'm building a speaking business, what's my true north? I'm making the event planner a hero. You keep that in front of mind, these things are going to start aligning on what you need the next step to be. I'm making the event planner a hero.
I love that. And then now what is your final step? You're off the stage. Yeah. Do you have any follow-up?
I do, yeah. Hey, to my
you did. I was just trying to lead to hear it.
I had a mentor tell me early on, fortune is in the follow-up, and it's true, right? Look at where my leads are coming from. Is the majority of my leads do come from stage side, getting off the stage, somebody heard me speak, or the event planners creating an introduction. I have a very intentional follow-up. So let's say I'll give you an example. 2 weeks ago, I spoke in Denver. I spoke on a Friday. I was their closing keynote, and so everybody was leaving after me. I did not send the event planner an immediate follow-up. What I do is I wait for the next business day. okay? Because
Mhm.
they're traveling, they're unpacking, they're,
They're toast.
they're toast. The next business day is I do send a personalized email with a video inside the email. And I'll say something
Excellent.
like this: Lee, thank you so much for bringing me into the SKO. I hope my message was well received. I wanted to include below some testimonials, some feedback that I received from some attendees, just so you can read some of the content. Because what happens as a speaker is your social media is going to start to blow up. And the authentic responses that you get are just phenomenal. And so I'll clip those and I'll put them in an email so that the event planner can see it. And then what I used to ask for a lot. I'm going to ask for the testimonial. I'm going to ask for a referral. I'm going to ask for what I found is that if you've done a fantastic job, you have enough credit in the bank for one transaction. One, not two, one.
Okay. And what's the one?
Asking for a referral. Okay. That and I have found that if I ask for can you give me a testimony and a referral, I'm not getting the responses that I want, or I don't get any response at all. I feel like I can get one ask, and so I always ask for the referral, and I'll say something like this, and this comes after the testimonials from their attendees. I'll say something like, "So I can't wait for our paths to cross again. Hey, do you have any other colleagues that bring in guest speakers where you think I would be a good fit? Would you mind making a warm email introduction?" And that's what I do, Lee. A to Z.
That is fantastic. Because you do it so well. So I really think this has been, anybody who did not get a lot out of today's podcast, you weren't listening. You need to listen again. There was a lot there. All right, Johnny, I'm going to wrap it with this. And you sort of answered this before, but I'm going to ask it, see if you have another answer. If you could go back in time, just over a decade there when you started this, what would you tell your starting self? What one thing should that person know?
Is that you need to be in community. I got that right in sport. I missed that as a speaker. This can be, and it doesn't have to be, but this can be a lonely business, particularly when you're getting started. And so what we need to seek out are men and women who are further down the road that we want to go and ask for their wisdom. Lee, I did this at the Olympic Training Center. When I made it to the Olympic Training Center, I went and I searched out the other Olympians, the Olympic medalists, and I asked questions. I observed, hey, when are you training? What do you eat? Blah, blah, blah. I found community. As a speaker, I don't think we do that. And I would even say even now, as a more established speaker, I still need to be in more community. I'm searching out, asking questions. And so that's one thing I wish I did better early on.
Okay, well, so everyone, please do look through the scroll there and look for the podcast on community, because while not taped yet as I'm talking to you, it's in the works. So I love that you gave that segue. So look for it. It's out there. Community is very important. Well, thank you so much, Johnny Quinn, U.S. Olympian. I appreciate all you shared today. You're always a generous spirit, so I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Lee. It was awesome.
Thanks for listening to Path to the Main Stage. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And for full video episodes, check out YouTube. If you want to be a successful speaker, you need to make it happen. My co-hosts and I are here to help guide you. But if you need more help, please check out pathtothemainstage.com, where we can connect. And until next time, keep sharing your voice, keep showing up, and keep taking your path to the main stage.